Hello, everyone. My name is Emma, and welcome back to our podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something that many of you care about: how to learn English more effectively. Learning English can sometimes feel difficult, but with the right methods, it becomes not only easier, but also fun. And I'm not alone today. I'm here with my friend Alex.
Hi, Emma. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited about today's episode. I know many listeners are trying to improve their English, and sometimes they feel stuck. They might study a lot, but they don't always see fast results. So today, we want to share some of the most practical and powerful methods that can help learners at the B1 and B2 levels really move forward.
Exactly. And if you're listening right now, you should know that this episode is not just about theory. We'll share real strategies that you can use immediately. Also, stay until the end, because we'll tell you where you can find today's full transcript and a vocabulary list in PDF format. That way, you can read along, review, and learn even more.
Yes, that's a great idea. So let's begin with the first method, immersion. Immersion means surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. Many people think immersion only happens when you travel to an English-speaking country, but that's not true. Even if you live in a country where English is not spoken, you can create your own immersion environment at home.
That's so true. For example, you can change the language settings on your phone or computer to English. You can also watch movies, TV shows, or YouTube videos in English. At the B1 or B2 level, it's very useful to watch with English subtitles because you can connect what you hear with what you read. Over time, you'll notice that your listening comprehension improves naturally.
Right. And speaking of listening, podcasts are also a fantastic tool. Many learners don't realize that listening to English every day, even for just 10 or 15 minutes, can make a huge difference. When you hear the same words and phrases again and again, your brain starts to recognize them automatically. It's like training your ears to become familiar with the rhythm and sound of the language.
I completely agree. And another tip is to listen actively instead of passively. Passive listening means you just play English audio in the background while you're cooking or cleaning. That's good, but active listening is even better. Active listening means you focus on what you hear, maybe write down new words, repeat certain sentences, or pause and try to understand. It requires more effort, but it really helps you learn faster.
Yes, active listening is powerful. Now, let's talk about another method that many learners find helpful: speaking with yourself. It may sound strange at first, but speaking to yourself in English is actually a fantastic way to practice. You don't always need a partner. For example, you can describe what you're doing during the day. I am making coffee, or I'm preparing my bag for work. By doing this, you train your brain to think in English.
That's such an important point. Many learners wait until they have a conversation partner, but the truth is, you can practice speaking anytime. For example, before going to bed, you can summarize your day in English. Today, I went to school, then I met my friend, and we talked about. It doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is to practice forming sentences in English so it becomes more natural.
Exactly. And if you want to go one step further, you can even record yourself speaking. At first, it might feel a little uncomfortable, but it's a great way to hear your own pronunciation and see your progress over time. Many learners are surprised when they listen to themselves after a few months. They realize how much better they've become.
That's so motivating. Another method we should talk about is using vocabulary notebooks or apps. At the B1/B2 level, you already know many basic words, but to reach fluency, you need to expand your vocabulary. Writing down new words is not enough. You have to review them regularly. A good technique is called spaced repetition. It means you review words at increasing intervals. Today, then tomorrow, then 3 days later, then 1 week later, and so on.
Yes, spaced repetition is very effective. because it helps you move words from short-term memory into long-term memory. Many apps, like Anki or Quizlet, are built around this principle. But even if you prefer a traditional notebook, you can still use the method. Just make sure you don't learn a word once and then forget about it. Words need to be recycled many times before they truly become part of your active vocabulary.
And speaking of active vocabulary, there's a difference between passive vocabulary and active vocabulary. Passive vocabulary means you can understand a word when you read or hear it, but you don't use it when you speak or write. Active vocabulary, on the other hand, is the words you can actually produce. At the B1/B2 level, your passive vocabulary is usually larger than your active one, so you need to practice using those new words in sentences, dialogues, or even short stories.
Exactly. One way to do this is to create personal examples. Let's say you learned the word achievement. Instead of just memorizing it, you can make a sentence like, "Graduating from university was my biggest achievement." When you connect words to your own life, they become easier to remember and easier to use.
That's such a useful tip. And you know, another method I love is reading graded readers or simple books in English. Many learners jump too quickly into very difficult novels, but that can be discouraging. Graded readers are books written for English learners at different levels. At B1 or B2, you can read books that are challenging but still understandable. Reading like this improves your vocabulary, grammar, and overall fluency.
Yes, and it also builds confidence. When you finish a whole book in English, even a simple one, you feel proud of yourself. That positive feeling gives you more motivation to continue learning. Motivation is extremely important because learning a language is a long journey, and you need energy to keep going.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of motivation, many learners ask us, how can I stay motivated when learning English? We'll talk about that in more detail later in this podcast. But for now, let's just say this. You need to find methods that you actually enjoy. If you enjoy watching English TV series, then that can be your main method. If you enjoy writing in English, then focus more on writing. The best method is the one you can continue doing consistently.
So, Emma, in the first part, we talked a lot about listening, speaking, and vocabulary. Now, I think it's time to move to another important skill, writing. Many learners at the B1 or B2 level avoid writing in English because they think it's too difficult or boring. But actually, writing is a powerful tool for improving all areas of language.
That's absolutely right. Writing helps you in so many ways. It improves your grammar, expands your vocabulary, and forces you to organize your thoughts in English. For example, if you write a short journal every day, you'll practice building sentences, using new words, and thinking in English. And the best part is that you don't need a teacher for this. You can do it on your own.
Yes, journaling is excellent. You can write just 5-10 sentences about your day, what you did, what you felt, or what you plan to do tomorrow. And if you want to take it one step further, you can also write short essays or opinion pieces. For example, you could write about a topic like, should students use smartphones in class? Even a short opinion essay helps you practice expressing your ideas clearly in English.
That's a fantastic idea. And one tip for learners is not to worry too much about making mistakes in the beginning. When you write, the goal is fluency first. Just get your ideas on paper. Later, you can go back and correct grammar or spelling. If you focus too much on perfection while writing, you might stop and lose your flow. So it's better to write freely first and then edit afterward.
Exactly. And editing is where the real learning happens. When you notice your mistakes and correct them, your brain starts to remember the correct patterns. If possible, you can also ask a teacher, a friend, or even use online tools to check your writing. Feedback helps you see where you need to improve, especially with grammar.
Speaking of grammar, we should definitely talk about grammar learning strategies. At the B1 and B2 level, learners already know many basic grammar rules, but sometimes they still make mistakes, especially with tenses, articles, or prepositions. One method I recommend is learning grammar in context. Instead of just memorizing rules, look at how grammar is used in real sentences.
Yes, grammar in context is much more effective. For example, instead of studying the rule for the present perfect tense in isolation, read short texts or listen to podcasts where people naturally use the present perfect. Pay attention to how it's used, and then try to create your own examples. This way, grammar feels alive, not just a list of rules.
That's a very good point. Another method is to focus on the mistakes you personally make most often. For example, if you always forget to use the article the, then spend some extra time practicing that. You don't need to study every grammar topic equally, just the ones that cause you the most problems. That makes your learning more efficient.
Absolutely. And we can't forget one of the biggest questions learners have. How do I stay motivated? Motivation is key, because without it, even the best methods won't work. One thing I suggest is to set small, realistic goals. For example, instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English in 1 year, you can say, this week I want to learn 20 new words, or I want to finish 1 podcast episode every day.
Yes, small goals give you a sense of achievement, and they keep you moving forward. Another way to stay motivated is to track your progress. You can keep a notebook where you write down the podcasts you listened to, the words you learned, or the books you finished. When you look back after a few weeks, you'll realize how much progress you've made, and that gives you energy to continue.
And let's not forget about the power of rewards. If you complete your weekly English practice, give yourself a small reward. Maybe watch a movie you love, eat a special snack, or take a relaxing break. Rewards make learning feel more enjoyable and less like a chore.
That's a fun strategy. Also, many learners feel more motivated when they study with others. You don't always need a traditional class. You can join online language exchange groups, conversation clubs, or even study with a friend over Zoom. Learning with others makes you accountable, and it also gives you opportunities to practice real communication.
True. And while we're talking about communication, let's discuss one more important method: shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a sentence in English and try to repeat it immediately, copying the speaker's pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. It's like being a shadow. You follow the voice closely. This method is great for improving fluency and pronunciation.
Yes, shadowing is one of my favorites. At first, it feels difficult because you have to listen and speak at the same time. But if you practice regularly, it becomes easier, and you'll notice that your speaking becomes smoother. A good tip is to start with short, clear audio, like a news clip or a short dialogue, and then move on to longer content.
Exactly. And don't worry if you can't repeat every single word perfectly. The goal is to imitate as much as possible and get used to the natural flow of English. Many learners who practice shadowing, even a few minutes per day, see big improvements after a couple of months. That's amazing. Before we move on, I also want to talk about common mistakes learners make when choosing learning methods. One big mistake is trying to do too many things at once. For example, they start 5 apps, 3 grammar books, 2 podcasts, and then after 1 week, they feel overwhelmed and stop. It's much better to focus on just a few methods consistently.
Yes, consistency is everything. Another mistake is focusing only on passive skills, like just reading or listening without speaking or writing. If you want to really improve, you need to practice all 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Balance is important because each skill supports the others.
Exactly. And the last mistake I'll mention here is comparing yourself too much with other learners. Everyone learns at a different speed. Just because your friend learned 500 new words in 1 month doesn't mean you should feel bad. Focus on your own progress and remember that every step forward is a success.
That's such a good reminder. So, to summarize, part 2, we've talked about writing, grammar and context, motivation strategies, shadowing, and common mistakes to avoid. All of these are essential parts of becoming a confident English speaker at the B1 or B2 level. Yes, and in the next part, we'll share some advanced tips, daily routines for learners, and how to connect English learning with your personal interests. So stay tuned, it's going to be very practical and inspiring. Welcome back. In the last 2 parts, we shared many learning methods and strategies. Now, in this final part, we want to give you some advanced tips and also show you how to create a daily routine that really works. Remember, English learning is not only about working hard, it's about working smart and making it part of your lifestyle.
Yes, exactly. Let's start with daily routines. A good routine doesn't need to be long or complicated. Even 30 minutes a day can bring big results if you use that time effectively. For example, you could spend 10 minutes listening to a podcast, 10 minutes reviewing vocabulary, and 10 minutes speaking or writing. That's just half an hour, but if you do it every day, the progress is incredible.
That's such an important point. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. It's better to study a little every day than to study for 3 hours once a week. When you practice daily, your brain stays connected to the language. You don't forget as quickly, and English becomes a natural part of your life.
Exactly. And for learners who have more time, they can expand the routine. For example, morning can be for listening, afternoon for writing, and evening for speaking practice. But even if you're busy, short daily practice is always better than nothing. The key is to find a schedule that you can actually keep.
I agree. Now, let's talk about connecting English learning with your personal interests. Many learners feel bored when they only study from textbooks. But if you connect English to the things you already love, learning becomes exciting. For example, if you enjoy cooking, you can watch English cooking videos, read recipes in English, or even write your own recipes in English.
Yes, and if you like sports, follow sports news in English. If you love music, learn the lyrics of English songs and try to understand their meaning. If you are into technology, read articles or watch reviews in English. The idea is that English should not be a separate subject. It should become the language you use to enjoy your hobbies.
That's so true. Another advanced tip is to practice thinking directly in English. At the B1 and B2 levels, many learners still translate in their heads from their native language into English. That takes time and makes speaking less natural. So try to describe things around you directly in English without translating. For example, when you see a tree, think, "That's a beautiful tree," instead of translating from your own language first.
Yes, thinking in English is like training your brain to switch systems. At first, it feels strange, but with practice, it becomes easier. One technique is to do small mental exercises. When you walk to work or school, try to name the things you see in English. A red car, a busy street, a tall building. These little exercises add up and make English more automatic.
I love that. And here's another method, storytelling. When you learn new vocabulary, try to create a short story using those words. For example, if you learn the words journey, challenge, and success, you could make a story like, "Last year, I went on a journey to another city. It was a challenge because I didn't know the language well, but in the end, I felt a big success." Storytelling helps you remember words and practice grammar in a fun way.
That's a great strategy. And while we're at it, we should also mention using technology wisely. Today we have so many apps, online courses, and tools. They are helpful, but only if you use them regularly. Don't download 10 apps and forget them after a week. Choose 1 or 2 that you really like and stick with them. Technology should be a support, not a distraction.
Yes, and sometimes the simplest tools are the best. For example, flashcards, digital or paper, are still one of the most effective ways to learn vocabulary. Reading ebooks with a built-in dictionary is also very convenient. But remember, tools don't replace practice. At the end of the day, you have to speak, listen, read, and write in English to improve.
Exactly. And before we move to the conclusion, I want to share one last piece of advice. Be patient with yourself. Many learners want quick results, but language learning takes time. Sometimes you'll feel like you're not improving, but actually you are. Progress is not always visible day by day, but if you keep going, one day you'll look back and realize how far you've come.
That's such a beautiful reminder, Alex. Learning English is not a race, it's a journey. And every learner's journey is unique. The most important thing is to enjoy the process, stay curious, and celebrate small victories along the way.
Absolutely. So, to wrap up today's podcast, we've talked about listening, speaking, vocabulary, writing, grammar, motivation, daily routines, advanced tips, and common mistakes. That's a lot of useful information.
Yes, and we hope that all of you listening will take at least one or two methods from this podcast and try them in your own learning. Remember, not every method works for everyone. The secret is to experiment and find the strategies that work best for you.
And before we finish, we have two small requests. First, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel. That way, you won't miss future podcasts where we share even more tips about English learning.
And second, don't forget that you can download today's PDF file, which includes the full transcript of this conversation and a special vocabulary list with explanations and examples. It's a great way to review what you learned and continue practicing.
Yes, the PDF is waiting for you, so check the link below.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Keep practicing, keep smiling, and remember, every day you spend with English brings you one step closer to fluency.